So, we have this very tough reading today, and the reading is basically this. They're people who are in the life of others who are wearing fancy robes like I'm wearing, right? And they like to walk around, and what do they like to do a lot? What? Yes. They like to show off. They show off by doing a lot of what? Talking. And these folks are known for what I call doing prayer battles. And that is, see who can pray longer than the other person praying in the streets that day. So they go as long as they can, and they use these really big fancy words that no one really understands just to draw attention to themselves. But there's this lady who has very little. And yet she feels that her closest friend is with God. And so she is excited every time that she comes to worship. And when she comes to worship, she feels like that she is coming home to be with God. But when you come to worship during the time of Jesus' life, you are supposed to put money in this thing called a treasury. And a treasury was this really fancy metal container where you would drop your money in. Now, if you are sitting out in the pews, you can tell who put in more than others. Would you guys like to try an experiment? Okay. So, let's try it this way. So the people with the fancy robes come in. Who wants to be the fancy robes like me? Okay, come on up. You do have fancy robes on. Perfect. Come on up. Come on. I'm going to give you a handful, and I want you to take this handful. Now, what we're all doing is we're listening to see which makes the most noise. Can you put all that in your hand? And go put it in that vessel right there. Good. Perfect. Now, who wants to try the next type? Anyone else? Come on. Go ahead. Would you like to as well? And then the next type? Anyone else? Perfect. And then the very last one. Who thinks that the loudest sounds came first? Anyone? Yeah? Some of us? The last ones that went in, was that the louder sound, or was that maybe the softest sound? The softest sound. So this poor lady who came and had very little to give to church, she only had what we would say was 2 very, very thin coins, and only 2 of them would equal a penny. So I have in my hand 1 penny and a button. And you just hear that faint sound that comes in. Well, what happens is the guys who come in with these fancy robes, they come into church. And when they come into church, everyone knows they're here. You don't have to turn around because you can hear them come. And when all that sound happens, you know what everyone does in the pews? They turn around. They say, oh, it's the great teachers. It's the most important people in our community. Where should they come and sit in the church? Right up front. And so they would come and they would sit in front of them, come sit with you. And they would sit here, and it was not only so that they could look out over all the people and people watch. Do you ever people watch? No? It was also so all the people could watch them. And when they had a chance to talk, or they had a chance to pray, that they could easily get everyone's attention. They were a little bit of what we call show-offs. Do you know what those are? Show-offs? You know what a show-off is? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they not only have fancy things and show you, but they also tell you about it, right? And the thing is, we will find people in our lives that are always trying to be kind of the center of attention. But we have this lady who comes today, and when she comes to put her coins in, Jesus is sitting right beside the treasurer. So he's right here. So I want you to visualize this. These are the doors to the church. You put your money as you come into the church space before you go in and have a seat. Can you visualize that? Okay. So when she comes and puts her money in, Jesus knows everything about her because Jesus knows everything about us. She puts in the only 2 coins that she has. She has nothing else. She empties everything that she owns in her life into that treasury. Now everybody else is still focused on the people who came in the long robes and put in so much money that it drew a lot of attention to themselves, right? But she comes in quietly. And you know what Jesus does? What does Jesus do? She put the most in. You're absolutely right. So after she places it in and she goes to have a seat, Jesus whips around to look at his disciples. And he says, come over here. Did you notice this woman? Did you see what I saw? Did you hear what I heard? And the disciples are like, okay, we did. And Jesus wants them to know she gave everything so that she could draw closer to God. Now, what this calls us to think about is this. If she was not drawing attention to herself, she was just simply drawing in to be closer to God. There are people in the world around us all the time that are doing small acts that draws them closer to God. And what Jesus wants of his disciples, which means what Jesus wants of us, is to do this. Is to go out and to do kind things and to give of ourselves to others. Not to draw attention, but to do it as if no one will ever notice. But who does notice when we do those things? Yes. God and Jesus, they notice. And it helps us to draw closer. So I want you to think about this. Who lives in a home? Okay. So if you're walking around your home and you see something that needs to be picked up or something that needs to be cleaned or something that you could do to be helpful, to say, this can be a way that I can care for my family. When you're in school, you can see that maybe a piece of trash has been dropped on the ground, or you can see that someone is struggling picking up their books. And you can go over and you can say, I can do this little act not to draw attention to myself, but to care for my classroom. I get to see people all the time that do these little quiet acts of loving others. What is a way that you can love another person? Yes. So to have a care for nature, including bees, absolutely, absolutely. How else? Yes. Help pick up stuff? Absolutely. Right. Other ways that we can care for other people. You can give them a hug? Absolutely, absolutely. So I want you to think about this. Has anyone ever been in a car and have gone through one of the toll booths that we have in Richmond? Have you? You know, when you go through, okay. Have you ever been through a toll booth here in Richmond? Okay. So we have the toll booths, and I want you to think about it this way. We are trying to find times in our lives when we leave this busy world that we're in, where there's lots of competition and people being flashy, to enter into God's kingdom. And so if we think about the toll booth, you go through, and what do you do to get the little arm to come up? You put some change in. So you come to the place where you do it, and I don't want you to think about your Easy Pass. Not the Easy Pass. All right. So you come through and you pull up, and I want you to think about this. I live in this busy world where we're going to soccer practice, and we're going to school, and we're going to scouts, and we're going to dance, and we're going to work, and we're doing all these things, right? But I want to find times in my life when I get there, and it's like I drop it in so that I can enter into God's kingdom. And that doesn't just mean when you come to church. That means I'm going to be looking for ways that I can be the hands and the feet and the heart of Jesus out in the world. And when I do that, I want to do it quietly, and I don't want to draw attention to myself. I want to do it like no one else is watching, but I know that it draws me closer to God, and it makes me a better person because I feel closer to God. And that means that we can find times throughout our whole day where we are simply depositing our coins into the treasury of what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. What does it mean to let go of everything and to go and to give to others? Who wants to give more to others? Who wants to love others more? This is the hardest question. And tell me if you see any hands behind me. Who thinks that this world needs to see more love? Are there lots of hands up? Awesome, awesome. So let's stand, and we're going to say together our creed. We're going to invite the congregation to stand as well, and you will find it in your bulletin. But because it's still new in the year, I'm going to get you to repeat it after me. So I'll say it and you echo it back. We ready? I believe in God above.
I believe in God above.
I believe in Jesus' love.
I believe in Jesus' love.
I believe His Spirit too.
I believe His Spirit too.
Comes to teach me what to do.
Comes to teach me what to do.
I believe that I should be.
I believe that I should be.
Kind and loving Lord like you.
Kind and loving Lord like you.
Amen. Let's give them a hand for their attention.